Yes, so like the names in the Korean like they for a long time my dad basically not just like a massive response my probably the game you know the Korean. So like even after that it was had returned back to that like at that point I'm looking for that will might have been very very sad at that might at that point I don't know basically how much that and might have loved each other like at that point like I'm just like might have taken it in extremely sad at the point that I that secretly deep down that there might have been that extreme pursuiness towards like might have been the case. So that then while Eleven and Eleven had returned back after like the whole year to my like easily at that point definitely might have been secretly wishing that back Eleven and might put right up to the bully. Might have been the case definitely my put the So definitely with right now with that will totally feeling at that Mike and Eleven have that totally when might have been quite some feeling at this that he might find would have a chance at that eventually getting might to now not yet organize that will might have felt like but like with that will right now think how badly might want that relevant back that come to point that this might see exactly what will be right now triggering will so much and that the fight between will and might and all of them would be due to this reason might be the case definitely but yet like I'm actually for that will see that really realize and be able to that accept like the fact that like to that the great extent to which that that the amount of that affection between that children and mind and the problems to that eventually that learn I think will eventually turning into that and letting go of it like illness was like my turning into that at this point and totally accepting that and is you be accepting of that basically that we shouldn't be instead of being an obstacle in that the relationship between that might and 11 that we should be a great point that's supposed along with the realization that like happening to the injury. And I'm wondering that it would be by that we would be fine with having someone we find it that by clear coincidence that will be ending up running into someone who will eventually ending up becoming that this person in the take of like the scenario I remember that near that someone on that is the kilometer from the most likely among one among like the individuals who are like the failed experiments of that kind of like so that with that 11 being like the successful experiment of kind of like from that individuals from that 1 to 10 one of the things that like would be avoid around like which age like a particular that would be that the person who and like eventually would be turning out to do like the ending up becoming a lad the boyfriend is like feeling it's an artist that I'm doing that way like I'm usually like into the like good boyfriend would be having like similar kind of like superpower like 11 as well. It's like in scenario, even though not to the extent of 11 steps that the kind of we have a pattern about like 11 is like will definitely can sleep about like definitely scenario that are looking at the and so definitely not very interesting right now. That's for that. Right now through like the dark web and see that potential and find has a like definitely not potential right now. So it's scenario to be that element right now through the dark web by searching for header like so maybe like I see that the interior or that sort of like place is like the scenario that I'm so element still won't be a flexi header because like since like the last time element has searched for actually like basically it had seen element like I'm being more comfortable because such a short time since like Billy had gotten caught in that got on that location. I'm whispering that it might have not even been that the active Billy that might that had like vanished from that 11 like site through that ground where there was search for Billy. But in fact, like it might have been definitely like the real world Billy being under like the control, remote under like the control of like the Harry version of Billy would be that one among like the superhuman are individuals of that and being might be the case that so that paranoid potentially might be that the person who like remotely even to the person who's like remotely controlling Billy and would be even creating all this like hallucinating remotely to Billy whenever to like it force Billy into like obeying like the orders and do exactly like Pranav would be wanting and gathering up which would be like desperately and quickly gather up that more and more individuals and for like Pranav to like experiment and to be able to take that power so that like Pranav will be having ultimate superhuman army which like Pranav will be then planning on actually taking to that Malward and fighting against that Charamocha to bring down the Charamocha because like Pranav would be definitely be like the only person like maybe when I'm aware of like the full extent of the danger in this like not only the town of Hawkins could be, but also the entirety of that entire real human world might be of like the front of like the shadow motor due to that the purpose that like the shadow motor might have made to that reason or like also like the single alone might be the case definitely might be variable. So like the need might be encryption right now for like a bunch of the despite even on the searching for that and the through like the last way like I'm different like a bunch of different like the when like search for like people earlier like I see really had to be there and since the fundamental growth in that you know like later work of the balance would be having it without the like a branch away like to that and like create a barrier to that people that even would be person for the art like might be the case that we might be selected into scenario and going to go that way the people like the validation really probably having created such a barrier on kind of aspect it's like an edge scenario that way like right now for particular logic of as an aspect you know not seeing it like see even though right now that's the location right now number point would be in that within that forum so that without using let's see Qatar like 11 right now while I'm actually in the point by something for the only being able to like see the model and I'm the different lab multiple possibilities for that as well like 11 lab to be seen just like won't be able to find Qatar but would be only seeing like that forum and like white 11 would be meeting around in that forum so that up way like also sort of like this that it's like hallucination of that that band was now to me like one thing that became hallucination of that a continuous which was hallucination of like that uh startle world monster and like that like thing of like the band version of that monster like jumping towards like 11 right like after 11 that way like scare 11 out of like the dark way maybe if the battle was not really authentic that it's like one possible scenario that I'm looking using like the battle was not really that you can destination with for it like one possible scenario that I'm looking or like the also that I'm using this for that why 11 will be something for the last way like and so to bring a bad point like 11 seeing like the interior of that sort of that point maybe that even only hearing the voices but like not actual people like maybe like the superpowers of the developers would be that he will be that creating that barrier yet like would be that according to like business probably that and like that version will be that his voice alone like learn here as well or like that will be his voice alone that will be hear it through the market you are like the actual British voice will be telling 11 to that to not stop spoken and that would be like attraction for 11 to like that way to trigger and your element to that creating that much of that any to that sub and find really might be the case. So like that way like Billy's voice like has like a warning to like event to that song to don't there sorry subject for the along the lines of that a voice being heard by event by so the last word like to the motivation for have a things like in the other possibilities like talking about this scenario while the learner will add in the last word and it's also have that like the scenario that I'm looking at on the geometry. Oh, so that the limit the reaction right now is what like 11 right now like something sort of that let's see the main box and the red dot like on the doing more technique that us so might be the cases that 11 so like a connected like in series case like I'm then already by now that for us like experiment either for an experiment or like that as well might be all but even more than that and the for that even more than an experiment like a like might be currently that another bit of focusing maybe focusing on like don't all the experiments for last and currently maybe one of the only focusing on that having is like already existing army of like documents like quickly using the superpowers like take that do that for remote controlling of all these individuals to gather up more individuals and take control of them and bring them to that affect more individuals and to bring them to like the door down and like that way to that can take control of them as well and basically to have them as well be sent remote control and sent out to that affect more individuals and bring even more individuals to that the door down and then for like finally for enough to totally put them all into like some kind of like a situation and then to like start for the experiment that on all of that might be what might be planning to like about the that so like maybe that way that right now we're trying to find out that even if the husband might be all the under the control of that remote control of that one of that for not like superhuman army team might be the case of the and this might be the reason for like maybe that 11 right now seeing like the main book at the left correct box it might be that the dog to that the house of like so like all the data that might be like the remote and also like maybe what like event would be what not like that right now would be seeing one like 11 would be opening that red box to do not like the header that it's only in that maybe like a still kind of like a state that basically picking up a bunch of like ice packs and that only using that all that ice pack on top to be cold. That it's like the mental object and our parameter was so like by anyone will be in that confused on seeing the on seeing Heather act in such a manner like at that point so maybe Heather act like when they see 11 and totally stare in front of 11 is that cosmetic that and that's right or like Heather at that point like maybe shouting out to like 11 and telling 11 some sort of like a warning kind of that kind of to that stop something for us with along the lines would maybe that warning would do and it would be not actual Heather but like it would be not likely that the voice actually that it would be that one among like the runners that superhuman happening about like all of us turn up that creating that whole provocation and trigger kind of thing for 11 to create that thing more of like a style to that actually search for like all this missing people and that way to like eventually have 11 frantically first also like the town of person trying to like eventually end up coming in as part of that film that really ending up coming close to that the go around that runner will be planning to like set up that absolute track to like eventually correct and trap and the element into that go around to then take control of that element which would be like the weakest priority for like in like runners that role to that print out as like a weapon for like runners to use to that totally that runners ultimate goal to like print down the that might be the case definitely the okay, so like that's legal election right now, as well like right now, so the dark void right now, seeing that has been taken away from that element by screening help of that number definitely this will be totally a trap, most likely a trap set by that to totally mention that way that create that need the desperate need for like the tech element to that search and find element that way to like your element to eventually go on element to that part so that way for like enough to like actually I think it's like individual that put humanity will to that with that so from his humans to that create like also the visual hallucination and everything and that way like scare element to that way bringing and manipulating and hallucinating creating that hallucination within that element to that way like capturing element with the element lines like will be planning stuff simply because of that element just recently having searched for Philip, and at that point that while Philip had seen the macro that certain looking at like Philip spying on Billy through the dark world, and I believe even at that point it might have not been like that with Billy, but like it might have been that one was next to supplement Sal versus Billy remote controlling Billy might be in the case. Because like at that point, like the battle version of Billy might have said reported it to like like ultimate goal, like Bruno, like ultimate goal 11 Bruno as to like that having shown up that really so that electron might have really given the order to like all of the like human army that like will element like by the time that elements will be once again total android would be searching for delay or even further due to that during that time like the situation being like we have it abducted head up and brought head up to that and go on so that one might have told that it should be prepared and that way that can be that the most likely maybe like the bad version of setups might be like the one that might be right now remote controlling setup, like the real world setup is definitely about with that. Maybe like among like understanding something like Army that there might be like there might exist like the bad version of setup, but might be the case definitely that so that way land go for another order like it might be like the bad version of setup that might be right now through like the dark web right now. Maybe by controlling like the real world setup will be making will making like the real world setup like on that fake acting as if like while making her screen help me and all that like it would that way to that up the craft to like into 11 towards like the craft of that one might be the game's technique might have great. So like the clear fundamental of everything is like kind of thing that like every time we just through the last word of that kind of premium head to 11 like this you would be intended to like do 11 to precisely looking for like evidence collection to like head up at like head of phone the team members are in like that way to have 11 like perfect so to head us home might be like the current access in that of like for the definitely my preference and from there like episode like might have already pre-planned like step by step like strategy to like eventually get 11 to fall more and more deeper into like an absolute trap in which that at that point like we finally make it to like actual moves where like he would be already luring 11 in to like the board of might be what like might be planning right now, definitely might be planning. So like the index the percent like the current intent of that would be to like definitely as soon as possible to like get 11 to that short to that Heather's house might be the case, it's definitely might be planning. Okay, so like definitely might be planning. So right now that's like what of so right now that exploring like the shutdown and of the developers that like definitely within like the, while they're exploring like the available way right now, looking for like them not on finding any sort of like mysterious like machine which like work choice in the domain fit into like find like a business so it's not of finding anything at all. So that and that then both also we secretly live down also having that conversation of we kind of like a fear with them of that the traumatic experience within like the past within like the available connection to like the gate and like the face of motor and everything. So like like the reason fear within the by the game for that's the energy level thing. But like I'm them not find anything at all within like the energy level is like the scenario that I'm doing. Then that like the energy level they completely in which like shut down like state. But like none of like the machines or anything that like the energy level would be in like a fixed on kind of like state, just like the scenario that that way like right now through the current exploration and like neither pop up nor shows find anything at all like the scenario that I'm looking for. Yeah, like I'm Joe's still not being convinced that it's Joe's a bit only of like the mindset even at that point. After like being done with like the explorer, it's still Joe's a bit only of like the stand and of like the mindset that way. Still there might be some hidden home or like the location within like they're not really about the secret home or a secret location, but like this like machine that or machine is that Joe's still uses this like is that powerful. Uh, it's in the powerful magnetic field and everything that would be kept and would be along the lines of like the conclusion and like assumption and conclusion that like words will be coming down to those definitely making up for like the entire exploration of the developers like the scenario but like I'm doing like copper is only doing that not really going like the scenario that I'm just already and I'm also going to get that point like copper telling us that there might be some sort of like a totally different explanation for like a reason for like managing acting such a way and definitely that won't definitely won't be up to anything at all, secretly anything at all. If they along the lines of like the stand like copper will be like scenario that is that way itself like I'm like using like copper, often those at that point I'm like which is another felt like and it's like for happening between like choices and copper like the scenario that I'm in which like everything then coming down because like definitely from focus point of view definitely when electric person like offering and there are trust towards black hole really because of like there is about black hole electric basket like of they like always having like signed that paper like this saying the and giving it to over saying that like element like three and all that like so definitely talk up would be currently in the that's as well good terms with like and would be having that as what like point so like definitely talk up won't be at all willing to that trust that those reflect suspicion of that something secretly strong secret instrument or like something something that some making like causing the magnetic field and everything happening. Then along the lines of like an assumption and of like the mindset and like this and that. So like yeah, like I'm trying to in the one like some example deciding to like go up to points and talk to points like this and that. But Adam will definitely also be having his like home aspect like set up in like talking itself perspective now that I'm doing. So like that way I'm doing like pop up as well as those going up to like home expecting to like talk to like home and up to like points about like the magnetic situation and everything. But like I'm certain times so they find it home in like most of states. It's like a scenario that they won't be finding others there. It's like a scenario that I can. But for like that, like if situation with most every maybe like 5% like one might doubt only even beforehand that like might not notice like the magnet acting place. So like I'm like might have secretly done his own investigation and that investigation might have ended up with like maybe getting some leads and to like the point of like the that of the thing in that phone getting captured and putting in like an kind of situation by the like agents who was in that infiltrated the it might be like the case definitely when the name like that way. Think about the method the mission definitely that like machine that complex machine uh in like the beginning of like season three because to be to like shoot out being to that try to like open to that the state in that end of the level in that Russia. by that scientist like like the similar exact similar connection would be also present beneath like the more in like pocket and like and then that secret energy level will be like picked up beneath the more and even like the more even being created in that pocket as well that even happening consulting the members solution might have been through like the airplane hacker thing right from Lisbon suspicious people who might be connected to like by agencies in like the series of like strange things and they really like they might have like created like the mall and like as soon as they were done with like the creation of the mall like they might have instantly began like the secret underground creation of like the like kind of elaborate that actually beneath the mall might have been the case that we remember very well. Uh, all this happening so when that the early stages of like the past year and by now that that the situation might be that this that competency because shown in that section of the laboratory in like so like that would be that very strange complex thing product in like an selfie and of the laboratory period like them all where like this like screen might be continuing and like it would be like the situation where like the moment like person had received that like message through that one of the like had like managed to get hold of this like message for the service report about like that message about like the cell of thoughts like fearing and everything like the very day that like or like made that easily from that content of that could have gotten that message like because like sorry for that point of understanding that on that day on like we could only better length would be that for that 1 year like so only remaining time that year remaining would be just 1 day. So like probably Michael the game person for like currently like in an extremely like desperate manner that like experiment will be going on. But those two machines on that kind of laboratory share as well as like that such a very exact thing machine that and from like stealthy laboratory maybe engineers like some all would be like shooting out the beams to like the wall open up that portal and that kid connecting both that like energy level in Russia and like the steady energy level beneath the mold in that problem might be the case to like create that connection in that way to like to create such stealthy integration and connection between those two countries without like through that access without any borders that basically might be what that basically I can think in that energy level Russia as part of that experiment which will be having that red line of that one loop and all that might be the case in that series of stranger things might be the case. Because remember, so like according to the theory, items let's see right now, like the person location where like students would be looking like in some kind of like situation in that stealthy energy level which will be beneath that the mall information might be the case certainly might so like that way that into that situation of like an pop up as well as things without with them for the everything of right now won't be finding anything in that going going that energy level and then them heading off to own the scope in that and then them finding own scope home as well in like kind of situation and them probably confused as to like where exactly would own will be and it's like the scenario that I think I'm understanding. And then according to the premise and so different ones like joyful and offer would be usually going up to like on home and they are finding that on home in like a lot of situations but at that point the come from maybe for like so straight away come to like the something that basically so like definitely there's like something suspicious going on with that own and definitely own would definitely be like the person behind like this whole magnets hacking in a space manner so like also definitely in like stealthy manner would be somewhere in like fucking space some sort of like a secret instrument to be causing like the magnet to act in such a way. Yeah, straight away, like the concept that like that component like going to become down to the meditation. While I'm saying the meditation to be that Brunton secret uh, like complex machine like in that secret like energy level even is like the morphing topic might be the sole reason for like the man still like hoping to like hacking right in such a strange way. It might be and the reason for that is magnetic field and everything might be the case that we might be the you know so like we were in the lens right now that's what like even while going to the available he has to be in this like in lockdown and shut down to like the fact that like the CCTV cameras are still working like on the ground. That's definitely has absolutely nothing to do with like the job. But it's only solely having to do with like the secret Russian spy agent right now as a pretend like the might be the case and the science event scientist that would be right now doing all that experience with that complex machine that actually still brings the underground energy laboratories in like amount might be the case element of so like these CCTV cameras like the mission of these CCTV cameras within that energy shut down and the laboratory performance. The mission would be that actually would be connected and would be actually visible to like the underground energy laboratory beneath like the mountain of it might be the case, especially my friend. So that's the reason for like setting up and keeping like the CCTV camera within like the energy laboratory, shut down energy laboratory of that, almost in like a system kind of like shape like blueprint. That would definitely be something that like some by agents might have some after like the abduction and imprisonment of that points might have within uh, that enough with that energy level to get the mod might have been the case of the human friends. Because like I'm doing that for like the past year, like I'm doing that audience might have noticed that the magnetic action strange and everything way before that choice and that might have consciously get that original information hidden from that of angels might have been the case if you know the because that might be the remission for that Owens might have felt as if that not wanting to that get that copper as well as those into any more trouble especially with that the shock of that from that vast of like those having lost uh, like Bob and everything. So like and maybe and Owens might have even felt that so the thing is that maybe even confident that maybe he might be able to bring down the people who are like secretly doing all these things and creating this huge mind or like something like Owens might have had that much of like clarity as to like what's going on with like whole magnetic field situation. And in like Hawkins and like with electromagnetic action space. So like maybe without much clarity as to like what's going on, like might have been trying to like figure out the truth behind it. And I like one might have felt that basically until that Owens gets some specific like uh clarity enough sense of the thing to lead like for like Owens to keep it a secret from that as well as Jules might have been an undergraduate Owens might have said human brainers. So like this might be the reason for that considering that that means the person like while Owens might have been privately doing his own secret investigation to find out the reason behind that exactly such as spaceman or like a might have been doing like the past uh once like on the very day that like he had got on this like whole message for the circle of like the symbol of like feeling and everything like so different like it might have been made on that very day that like was during his like investigation might have ended up getting captured and making it to making some sort of like a serious progress and the like investigation and might have that as well and victim might have also in that came from there that and getting captured by myself and getting in person being captured as the level of like the mall might have been that it is definitely in way. Again, like I'm like after like 11 a year back when 11 had like most of like the huge gate beneath like the laboratory of like Owen's like since then like Owens might have been living in such stealthy and low profile kind of like life without attracting much attention at all and like might have only maintained very limited contact like maybe only with like corporate on that it might have been Owens alone might have been like the only remaining scientist from like the kind of the laboratory of Owens that might have continued on that deciding to like stay at like okay while from the remaining center might have left might have been the case with demand and so due to this lack of low profile kind of like living of like it might be the case for like maybe one might have gone affected on the very day that person had received had gotten that had only accidentally got such message of like the cellular of through like the cerebral and like still ambulatory due to like low profile living of like maybe it might have been the sole reason for like organs not still not realizing about like the abduction of like Owens might be not only Hawkins, but like not even Hopper being aware of this might be the case. Might be also due to this reason as well. Might be the case to human reaction. So definitely happens like after like the abduction of Owens like the Russian spy agents might have totally done that extreme interrogation on like for Owens and like through that interrogation might have been how they might have got of the information about that Hopper uh, maybe Owens might have still chance of like absolute best to like three like the names of like George and like the kids that out of the project by it that might have only first might have only revealed like the name of that copper alone and like that person who knows about like the battle world and everything along the lines like might have revealed to that corrected by during the state interrogation might have been the case even because like definitely that Owens might have been during that investigation might have been by the time that Owens might have gotten cancer by the things and might have been brought to that the underground and the laboratory. This might be existing in it like the more like at that point like Owens might have been so scared by seeing with like complex machine and basically what the what the scientists and all the were like trying to do like to create that connection between the cross between that strength difference through like the parallel uh, between that using this complex machine using that then available input transforming and all that from that still integration and all that. So at that point, still on the point that the owns might have shouted out to them and played that to them to like along the lines of like them not knowing like the full extent of like the extreme danger of like the experiments they are doing as for like these dangers like as for that monsters existing thing like the about like the German for and all the existing like the passport and the wrestling pages and everything. But like I'm saying like maybe like the Russian things like more having believe like the things that like own or might have been trying to like want them and instead might have straight away assume that they really owns would like trying to like totally correct that like stopping that character and around such line might have been the case that you remember it. Or like they might have had like a certain extent of like mental frustration from like ones might have been really leading to them to like so like and typically telling them about like the passport and about the things of experience and all that. Might have been the case and about like one might have told them about like the range of like journey that has gone through in like the past to like the close of like such importance and this and everything is like the which like they were the Russians that fighting that work through their footprint in like something applying like often get on the lines of something that always might have played to them to not to stop their so like I'm doing like at that point maybe that the spy agents and that scientists might have felt a certain extent of like a connection to like the things found might have been say to maybe be true. But like I'm thinking at that point of different like maybe that the spy might have only gotten more confident in that they that even if such monsters exist in like the battlefield that like they will be easily using that weapon to be able to like take out the monsters in the lines of like in a more confident manner that the Russian pilots might have but definitely not been able to go like at that point but like still through the interrogation like at that point like the pilots might have uh, done that extreme interrogation on them might to get out like to or from like Hawkins nose of like Owens like just maintain contact with like Owens and that's the another like they might have interrogated point and like at that point like on might have really focused me to the Russian spy agent might have been the case definitely but because like from the Russian spy agent like point of view like they might definitely since I'm sitting remember that like the very day that we had got of that message of through that story of like the box during that from that day on like the deadline might have been just like 1 week more might have been only what might have been left of as 1 year deadline for them to like for the scientists researchers to like complete that experiment and to create that present connection from that kind of level of inertia to that kind of level of getting like the more things might be through. So like within that it's always like them having such a big of like a time left and which could be deciding like the fate of like not only the scientists but also like the development by and everything. That I'm doing like the last thing they might have wanted to be for like someone to even figure out about like Owen's like affection and basically to come looking for Owens and that way attempting to like destroy like the experience of their private or that might have been the case. So like I'm doing it might be this once like the through Owens like the release that spies might have gotten like the name of Hopper. Like at that point like I'm it might be after like the abduction of Owens like maybe it might have been like in like the next few days, like next 1 or 2 days, that like this person by which might have been um, might have simply filed for friends might be the reason for like on that night where Hopper had basically shown up to this like restaurant for this like date with like Joyce, to which like Joyce didn't show up like basically during that point the fact that like there was this like the person who might have actually been arrested by like present in that restaurant. Like, he might have showed up there actually to like fight on like Hopper we probably we probably like to have a clarity on if that pop-up has figured out about like the specific abduction of like Owen to confirm this might be the code report like that by even totally production in that restaurant with by on top might have been the case. So like he might have been like during that fight like that pressing fight which might have felt like absolutely confirmed that basically in might have had that confirmed kind of like a feeling that like pop-up had absolutely no idea at all about like on season. might have been the case definitely my different. So definitely that way like I'm different like still like these Russian spy agents might have up like the version of black ones like might have been when like these Russian spy agents might have still they infiltrated into like the shutdown and locked up kind of the laboratory of black ones and might have switched on like the CCTVs and might have like connected like the visuals of like the CCTVs and like the laboratory homes to like the kind of the laboratory with like the more might be like that Russian and the laboratory like the more and like might have been what might happen. And it might have been for like the Russian spy agents to like ensure that absolutely no disturbance or like obstruction happened with like their deadline being too short, like with like that 1 week, like 1 week time period on alone like left for them to like have the scientists complete that whole experiment like there will be that absolute urgency on like the Russian spy agents to like so like for them like don't have any disturbance or like obstruction missing the scientists like progressing directions might be the sort of for like them might have like after like the question of going like might have set up switched on like really in like on the energy level and might have considered it to like the still the energy level even in like the model. So when like conditions even if like someone infiltrate into like on the energy level that will be totally might be totally to with that due to that so individuals like basically searching for Owen so like what they do to like them figuring out about like Owen that missing would be around the lines like but I made of felt so like I did into this reason that the positive is in like the shutdown and lockdown and of the laboratory of like Owen like being in like a fish situation like the person might be the case near the prey. So like I'm saying right now this black hole infiltration and exploring of like 10 of the laboratory points by Hopper as well as something like right now that would be in real time would be getting found out by would be seen by that correction by like might be like that so like I'm doing like without much great delay like I'm doing like correction by will be on the tail of like Hopper and Phillips choice to like affect both Hopper and Phillips choice before like they get like the total information as for like the version of like Owen uh, to like the before that news threats to like the entire police department to affect like Hopper and Phillips choice and to put them as well to like in kind of like situation giving like the more right in like the available opinion like the more might be what I'm looking like the great like the by like to attempt is like any scenario that I'm looking for I am operation. So like the Linux framework right now is for like you know only the just like the CCTV cameras in like the shutdown and available pay of like phones and all that would be in like the system state, but like I'm doing like even in like phones house as well. It will be in Hawkins as well. This will be also in like a shutdown state, like a locked up state, like still there as well. Definitely, the Arabic pages might have had a definitely had a like tiny camera which will be also in that working condition to that to find out if like someone shows up to that orange home like basically looking for like goes to that way to that darkness by agents to that without directing that up that them as well to prevent their social information from leaking which like definitely might be a mention for like what might be like that that limit and according to my good grammar, especially due to this reason, I'm still thinking about the grammar that like Robin, like Steve's that front to work with Steve in that mall. Like I'm looking for a technique won't be a secret question by my job. I'm definitely my good friend. So that what Robin knowing what might have absolutely nothing to do with that Robin even having any sort of that connection to that secret question by agents might technically be the case. And this would be the reason for like even after like Robin finding out as for like as for Dustin having found like the Russian message through like the Seriko and all that, like the fact that still even to like the person like Robin haven't like steadily affected Steve and Dustin and put that into like any some kind of like a situation like basically would be definitely due to like the Seriko as well as due to like Robin having absolutely no connection at all to that secret Russian spy might definitely be the case. Okay, so like the minimum preemption right now as for like the sudden like 50% that like Steve as well as Dustin things also like a Russian single Russian spy agent and it's like training would be definitely only like the maintenance guy in like of like the mall might be definitely the case definitely not correct. But still have to bring like both Steve as well as Dustin in an extremely reckless and clueless and cleverless manner like everything like them probably even to a certain extent creating a scene while trying to while they were basically jumping on that foreseeable person and trying to stop them and catch them. Like that I'm in actually that person would be only made and guy, but in that way, that's my super. But in that scene with the lack about speed as well as sustain due to the lack of stealth which is creating a resulting in the actual Russian spy agents who be in disguise within that mode, noticing the lack of scenario that I'm saying. That way, I'm saying that speed as well as but in that way, ending up attracting that through such a manner such an due to the mistakes of speed as well as mistake of the lack of stealth, I'm saying them ending up attracting the attention of the original the spy agent in the guys within at the moment and ending up with them coming up with with that absolute stealth the setting that come up both Steve and Steve and to capture Steve and Steve thing which are not apparent to me about the neighbors. Also, the place of the sitting on that basically a proper practical message something says to China sounds nice if you read lightly, I'm saying read lightly would be definitely what we are talking about stealthy infiltration to China using the same technique of basically setting up underground and of the laboratories and using these machines to create weapons from then of the developing Russia and basically the kind of the creating stealthy make some excuse to to stealthily create an underground and of the laboratory in China and basically to create weapons between the through the machines between Russia and China to makes that stealthy infiltration from Russia to China or to make that stealthy infiltration from from the energy laboratory which might be present underneath the more in okay and from to create weapon from there to move from there from underground from the machine from underground of the mall to from there to China and that would be what would be referred to because China might be to this question those China might be the absolute target might be the case definitely might be correct. The actual current main goal would be at the location of China might be the case according to in the world of the stranger things web series definitely not favorite. Okay, so machine on friends and right now and for Robin right now cracking the code of the message just the 3% right now and for how exactly what would that actual meaning of that code would be definitely in that it would into that China. That's so the neighbors going that it would be in that Chinese store in that mall that I'm going that while during every day during exactly 9:45 would even maybe both during 9:45 a.m. as well as p.m. Due to the time according to the phone where the blue means the yellow in the but so the different might be most likely to be 9:45 exactly AM both AM as well as PM might be the case definitely. So during this time exactly I'm just putting that in that Chinese store in the mall would be where all the spy agents would have selfies right now infiltrated into sockets might be all things could be their meeting spots where they would be messaging where progress and everything might be the case definitely. So in that Chinese store in the mall would be where all user active spy agents would be stealthily gathered and would be by putting on the paid acting and so that as pretending to be get a group of friends who are but only having fruits from that store and they would be sitting there and they would be exchanging all the information and about all the progress and everything. It's postal information as for maybe all sorts of the findings within pocket and everything because and the police still the situation would be definitely from the day that the thing had got of that message through the cerebral to be for that 1 year deadline to be 1 week alone that would be remaining just scenario that I was right. So definitely they would all be the phase then for their fate and future will be all relying on basically the scientists being on those corrective science being able to complete the experiment and make that connectivity from all the way from the laboratory in Russia to the stealthy enough laboratories might exist beneath the more in Hawkins might definitely be the case in the minimum. So just what the message that Hawkins have right now correct would be only the surface level meaning of that message. When naturally there will be another deeper meaning to that message. This is what I'm doing. A purple is still taking the message representation that like you need to like the blue means yellow in like the but would like the actual true deeper meaning of it would be for like that portal that like using that complex machine that like trying to be created since like the past year. Within like that energy therapy, like but there will be another like similar kind of like machine beneath like the more through which like beams would be sent out to create like another portal beneath like in this like stealthy energy level beneath like the more. So, that way simultaneously these two complex machines would be working and to like totally to create that like perfect through like the parameters for like correction purpose like from like technology level we will be able to like cross borders and make it to integrate into like organs through such a manner through that kind of level within it like the more might be the given. So I'm referring as part of like the need for name that is sitting on to like it will be definitely China that will be the target and spreading lightly would still comes to become a that would be meaning because of the meaning behind it might only be that like the actual goal would be that China and target would be China. And so that one if like they can succeed in this like parallel world product and inspiration from like energy level framework to like energy level we need like the more in like how then like the next goal to like totally would be to be against like the main target China to like totally make the next travel through the parallel world, extended travel through the parallel world, which will be only referred to as like spreading lightning to infiltrate to China might be the case according to like the world of like series of strange things that we might realize. So like there will be absolutely remember there will be this deeper meaning to that message and there will be that the surface level meaning to that message, which will be the only thing that Robin right now without characters that we remember the so like the meeting between and like also in that meeting like I'm going to be all that like people who are like working with that low uniform of like that silver cat and everything. So them those workers in like the mall uh, group of those workers in like the mall that will be hanging out in that Chinese restaurant like kind of like trading kind of store within like the mall. That would be like their meeting spot to like discuss about like the progress and about the and everything. Especially my good reaction with like only last few days remaining for that week deadline and like they will be all like so the spread to like to have like definitely the experiment become successful between the deciding that fate might be the case. So like I'm thinking definitely during exactly 9:45 a.m. like I'm covering like through like Robin feeling that she has cracked the phone. So that the new the missions from like once like Robin will be like revealing what he findings out for like cracking like for to like resonance skill. At that point still bounce like different resonance skill like only telling Robin that they need to let like for them to like only put on a fake acting as to have put them to have shit from like that strong Chinese storm and for their next conversation and all that. But like I'm thinking it would be like Robin at that point would be in a clever manner like would be telling Steve and giving Steve and Dustin this idea of like instead to just leave a recorder to a small recorder that in to place it like close to that Chinese restaurant where they would be having where like still be abused by agents would be having pretending to like have the food in the in, to like I'm doing that fake acting to like exchange information like for them to like steadily leave a record there with that absolute step and that way and them to like straight away leave after like leaving that record and later get that record that during that of them to like leave that recorder during that exactly 9:45 while that conversation between like those other pages would be going on and for them to like simply later pick up that record will be along the lines of the like Robin most likely like coming up with such an idea like the scenario that I was like to which like I'm thinking at that point that even though that the finance fee that would be totally agreeing like I'm assuming they would be having that kind of like correlation because like I'm assuming them would be like even more than like think along in like a more brilliant and manner to like to prioritize still as like that absolute high priority for definitely like I'm even more than that the same more content they will be only wanting to be part of like this whole mission and everything by having the physical presence be present and to for them to like only put on fake act and totally be part of like the whole situation by and for them to like only all here in real time while like the Russian spy agent could be having the still the conversation in that Chinese response. within the mall and all that. Maybe along the lines of different like Steve and Dustin might be twist bonding, but like I'm doing that still maybe not only agreeing to like Robin, but like I'm doing after like the whole during like 9:45 like and the three like Robin's definitely putting that record close to like this necessarily man of close to like close to where like those present by agents would be like having their invitation like that Chinese store. And I was wearing like Russian and like Russian door, I mean like a Robin door leaving that Chinese store, and I was wearing like Robin straight away telling Steve and Dustin to like probably like go to like motivate stay anywhere near to that Chinese store and get up the lines like to prioritize health better through experience. So like I'm doing like after like maybe like an hour like I'm doing like Robin like all by the front like casually going back to that Chinese store and like would be steadily looking for that record of that she would have definitely placed next to like the table where those participants who would have by then left from after that whole meeting, stepping in that the Chinese store like the scenario that happened. And that when I was like Robin not finding that record there. That would be that ultimate twist of like a job surprise from like Robin and that when like the scenario that happened. So like Robin that way that when like getting the biggest shot with like the record missing, and at that point number running will be when like that was good all happening with like productions by agents with their absolute extremely high and sharp that observation skills like and they would have probably noticed like Robin steadily acting screen and maybe use steadily plays it that record that was another category, right? So like that way that productions by agents like basically that way like the cover of like Robin as well as like street and that's been getting blown and basically like the by that way like figuring out as for like Steve doesn't and Robin knows about like the secret codes and about like the patient that they're open. It's like the scenario like everything. That way like I was bringing up the like from that point on like Robin and Steve and Dustin, even though during that point like they won't be in like a situation of like captivity by like corruption by like still like from that point on like corruption by like that aspect that will be on the page. And I was going like the room being even more secretly there being even more questions by agents than the one that would be that meeting up and like in that Chinese store or like a small that 9:45 meeting. It's like the scenario that I just feel like the other ones among their team about which like neither Robin nor Dustin nor three would be even aware of that. The three of the members were instead of assuming that we just like the ones that had showed up to that Chinese was not then the more alone it will be like the total number of that participants, but like there will be definitely other even other ones of them and in their team who would be like doing like the stealthy from that point would be doing the whole stealthy spike of that Robin and Steven was like spinning the scenario that I'm doing, and at that point able to bring that poor Robin getting blamed by that Steve and Dustin for like tough idea of that using the record and like telling the scenario that I'm going to go with and then okay, so like the assuming the different ambition with that one of the superiors at like Nancy's workplace telling mocking Nancy that like she doesn't want like but eating like the fire of my car and then this definitely won't be at all like uh, uh, uh committed to at all as to like how Billy that car like the bus had dropped down in front of that corner and Billy has got a capture and everything. That doesn't make myself doesn't not or mean like the work of like the shadow wants of like control around that biting like the car. I mean like biting the tire of that with his car. Definitely won't be at all the case definitely might was very impressive. In like the person that I'm sitting on which definitely would have been like the work of like the superhuman army team member, one of the superhuman army team member of like in like the person using like that person like it will be most likely the bad weapon really that only using it like telekinesis powers like destroying like the tire of like with his car and that way to like drop and drop the to like go down. And that way at that point that the even that monster like that that had basically um that like head of had seen within that go down as well as that during that point but Billy breaking down and Billy checking like that go down that Billy gets pulled into like that go down and everything basically even that as well would be totally or like the work of like power telekinesis or like the different kind of like powers of like the bad version of Ginny might definitely be the case, especially in my pyramid. And since then like everything Ginny will be even seen would be lack of the remote hallucination power done by like the bad version of Ginny or like the real world Ginny might definitely be the case. And it would be due to like the remote control of the system by the bad version of Ginny or like the real world Ginny would get this order is born like the parallel version of Billy. Since like we might have been living in the center time like the parallel world, so that since like we won't be able to like take the sunlight like in this would be like the definitely potential as well for like Billy, the real world Billy has to like to use all this like ice packs and everything because like due to the remote control like the parallel version of Billy as well will be getting affected while Billy will be stepping into that sunlight, but like not to the extreme extent where like if like the parallel version will be stepping in, parallel stepping into like sunlight. Just like the scenario is might be the case definitely not to remember. So like we got ultimate difference and simple ultimate difference so that just that shadow amount of particles that was that in like the percent that going on that had been alive and using most likely a frequency that had attracted all those rats into like that Gordon and had possessed like and taken control of all those rats like and from that shadow amount of the particle like that came and I might have been eventually totally one that turn up and it's like such a human army team had like would out only sort of do that slowdown and that might only start to like make it their face like at that point like they might not only ran into like that shadow monster stuff particle and might have been through the help of it like superhuman team using their like telekinesis power like that they might not only destroyed and eliminated like that shadow monster stuff particles and this might be and since then might have made like even like that Donna as like their base and in order to and since like during that time like due to like the presence of like a sudden block of particle that definitely that Gordon might have been in like a messed up and unclean kind of a state and this might be the reason for like exactly during like the time why all these fertilizers going missing. Nancy having found out like all these fertilizers going missing in like the town of Hawkins, which would be definitely due to like the shadow months of like so it's like control over like the rats to like get like the to have like the rats eat like the fertilizer and that way to transport to like the fertilizer to towards like the underground upside down wine. The place that or the like the past year like shadow months might have only managed to according to my friends might have managed to take control of Cali at some point because like Night of the Dimensions for like maybe figure to also possibly maybe being a scenario where like Cali and like the robber gang in like the past one like the past year while during that one of like the robbery while they might have been trying to like get away and escape from like the box while Cali might have used her superpower like and shooting like telekinesis power like and sometimes telekinesis power by then possibly having reached the higher levels of strength that basically by using the superpower like Cali might have actually also opened up like the portal to like the parallel might have been what might have happened. Like that tire and that gate might have opened up in such a manner. But Cali might have been using that superpower to like escape from like the cops might have been what had happened. So like Cali might have straight away seen that and might have completely got a confused so and even though the cops that were after Cali might have been stopped through like the use of like that superpower, still it might have also opened up a tire and like Cali by getting under over again might have only got so simply curious and that way like they might have entered or into through that term they might have entered into like the barrier and like they might have totally got a shock by seeing this like completely different world like parallel and while exploring the parallel they might have totally ran into a place monster which might have been under like the control of like the shadow monster might have been the case and that way like a different like this monster might have maybe eliminated like all of that Gary's like different like sort again and like might have Cali might have tried to protect them by using like the techniques of alien like the base model, but like they might have been uh, multiple of them, and like that might have resulted in like Cali not being in like same again person. Like that might have resulted in like these like base models like easily affecting Cali, and maybe that way Cali might have ended up being under like the control of like the of like the shadow monster might have been what might have happened. So like with like these rat in the situation of these rats and like these rat story and basically turning into like the kind of techno and discovering that maybe such explosions which might have been intended maybe in like the past by like the case of monster which might have been under like the control of the shadow monster by in like the past during that the abduction of Will while Hopper and Jones had found Will in that trap kind of like situation with this thing in like the mouth that when like for like the similar situation might have happened to Cali in like the past year where like even in Cali's case maybe that the complete off might have happened and maybe like that person might have happened like maybe in like the person Cali where Cali might have turned into a case more so also like a possibility that I'm right and maybe before even before that happening like I'm still that while that but like I'm sure maybe before that happening like I'm still while Cali might have been under like control of like the shadow motor and the shadow motor might have used Cali and some road Cali to, while taking control of carry, might have had access to the carry superpower, and might have stealthily created like a bunch of like underground for or multiple borders across like so there are absolute stealthy areas all across like the town, but it might have created like multiple underground set of portals using by taking control of carries like and superpower uh, and like then like everything that after doing that like everything like Shadow Monster might have began like all the sorts like one began again the process of creating like the underground simply creating like the underground upside down might have been expected even since then like the underground upside down might have been spreading all across like the town college during like or the course of the past year might have been the case currently by the so definitely, the might have even one like underground upside down and like multiple hubs as well by now might have been created that have listed during the topics of the underground upside down. And it will be like this in that underground upside down exactly like in the past like wines will be spreading and so to be for these wines that like these fertilizers that these control rats have written like making that translation of like these fertilizers to increase like the rate of spreading of like the wines underground upside down wines might be the case. Here, like according to my information, like one like runner and his like team of like so humans have been made to like that go down. Like at that point, like they might have eliminated like that dust particle like shadow muscle. And basically then like to clean up that go down might be the uh reason for like all those like other things that like I don't like the places in like the down pockets like basically fuel as well as like fuel would be meant for like really for like since like I want to run a plan to like after then raise like the army of like super humans of that plan to bring down like the element of like actually like for millions like travel might be the reason for like fuel getting stolen and that might have happened through like the control of Philip. Like Philip might have been like the one that might have stolen like fuels as well as like cleaning supplies and all that detergents and cleaning supplies and all that will be to like also to like set up that absolute perfect place in that and by cleaning up like the underground upside down uh, by cleaning up like not the underground upside down but like the Gordon might be the case in the previous but like even after that like even after like the control of like even after like believe like basically what capture and basically the control of like believe like basically the fact that like Kevin as well has seen this like faceless monster like thing that coming out from like the board of that definitely might have definitely be a hallucination where like in actuality like in like the person like the underground that's in that go down like that definitely might have been a certain hallucination where in actuality in like the person like the go down would be kept in such a perfect and clean state might be the case and like runner would be definitely present within that go down and which is that army of superhumans having that base current base in that go down might definitely be the case human experience in the next video. So like about the manufacturing drainage by now that basically the spreading of like the parent word through Cali by now electric importantly maybe haven't been completed like that having been completed by now and maybe once like that process will be complete getting completed like I'm saying exactly like in the case of like the explosion as well happening and along with like the explosion like California initially like Cali might turn into that this like faces note of might be very decent. That the fan version of element like the schema might have also through such a manner like might have turned into like a faces motor and once like the individual the like superpowers like turns into like faces motor when like at that point like these faces monsters might lose their superpowers of like telekinesis might be the case you know yet like these faces monsters might be far stronger than like the remaining faces monsters from human faces monsters and all from like the Talbot, who would be all like faces monsters, who would have all been like humans, bad version of humans, in like living in like the bad version of like high IQ, which might have been precisely targeted by like the shadow monster. Uh, might be the case definitely my friend because like IQ definitely will have a lot of relevance and the IQ spectrum might be the reason for like will getting affected as well as like even Barbara getting affected in like the past while in the case of like Bob, even though Bob was like a good finger and everything. Still, like Bob might have lacked that high IQ, which might be like that absolute necessary factor for like and would be extremely important for like the shadow motion, and that might be the reason for like Bob getting later. While like Will as well as Barbara was like affected, and I'm sure like it might have been like the fan was real world Barbara was still might still get into the person, and it might be like the fan was Barbara that might have that element through the backward in the class might have seen it as like eliminated. So like I'm saying that the bad version Barbara might not have like such high IQ or anything, but like the real world Barbara might have actually had like high IQ. This might be the reason for like the bit small in like the beginning from like that swimming pool area, not having like straight away eliminated Barbara, but having like abducted and brought Barbara to like the bad boy. This would be also due to like to in the intent to like turn Barbara into like a failed monster. Might be the case that we met. But like I'm saying in Barbara's case, like Barbara might have escaped and eventually might have ended up finding Pranav in like the parallel world might have been what might have happened. Like the real world, but Pranav, one he might have set up to set up to like this. During one point in like parallel that Barbara might have ran from like all these like monster might have probably by sheer coincidence might have ended up like finding that base of like Pranav. And so, like in the real world, Barbara would be more than still alive if even to the person, and would be most likely like the person would be having superhuman powers. But like would be like maybe out of like gratefulness towards like for like maybe she might have felt grateful or like she might be under like the control. So the experience like in the might have also managed to like take control of like Barbara might see that the possibility that so like that definitely Barbara sitting remember within the community, the superhuman and would be alive and would be like the real world Barbara would be still alive and would be most likely might be like the superhuman and would be most likely maybe even under like a control for enough might be pretty certainly member. So like Barbara like Liam would be one among those like multiple individuals that like Lily had seen during like Lily's like or during like release like 14 films like that they were on like those multiple people that really had seen like Barbara might have been one of them certainly might have been. Okay, so like you know trends right now so like most of them sound that like so far and those are right now but in the kind of concept and the level it won't be at all like any base person or at all it's definitely not brain so definitely the Russian spy agents like it that access that like seeing like the CCTV visuals and finding out about like pop-up and those in preparation to that on some of the level definitely able to eventually like I'm sure like therapies by might have been and after that like they might have figured that this so Papa enjoy maybe knowing about that things like that might be the case might be another lines like and like therapies by agents might have think like the portion of the like that even though a year back like whatever had closed like the tools gate beneath like the end of the lab of your account like still I'm bring that underground upside down that great number of honeycomb like four underground upside down four spring like definitely will be still present like even though like this 11 watching that gate that close upside down effect of it might have been gone since that common that pathway will be still present in anything like the working from and that pathway the current that would have usually totally connected all the way to that the location of that stealthy underground um, energy laboratory, that Russian energy laboratory is that come on in that often might be the case that means like pathway might be extended, might have the might have spread to like the point of like reaching that while that like while that by using like while they might have built some model and that might have instantly built in this lab underground and again laboratory to those experiments like instantly good direction. That point like while building that underground and laboratory they might have probably found out this lab underground holes in that area might have been the case. So like they might have explored that holes and might have usually made it to that own end of the laboratory might have been what might have happened like this impact like back during the time they might have been building this like uh, back during the time they might have been building this like lock in at home might have been the case of so like in like that way so they might have maybe it might have been during them that they might have set up to like even with like them hopefully being well and fully by the time they would have came to organs like they might have been aware that is that and of the consider have been about being in like a shutdown kind of state like still they might have set up that CCTV they might have turned on specific system like the sensitivity in like the energy level information might have connected it so that like the results would be within that kind of the laboratory to be visible all the way to like the laboratory being like the moment be the case. So like I'm currently putting like the person the sound that that pop up and doors like hearing would be that actually that the fixture or like the just step of like that rushing by it would be like right now rushing towards like the operand basically to like with that aspect to like capture them and affect them and send them and I'd like the kind of level of really like the more of like the then we that way to put them in a different kind of space along with that always would be what like they will be right now. I can make this like my the impression. So like they will be thought this way to be something that like operand will be present in like the present in like the locked up and shut down and until about the point might be to like them having figured out like when like updated might be the case definitely when she can sooner. So the grandson of for like electrical while Jill had been that affected and taken to electrical world while Jill was probably missing that basically Will spent off who was like waiting for Will and like after by us all alone like and definitely that pet house of Will might have eventually ended up getting having like the spreading of like shadow and stuff happening and might have turned into like a dark like monster faceless monster eventually might have been what might have happened certainly never so definitely, exactly. I'm definitely still thinking about the everything for like the temperature, like definitely like the top, like that's things like the basic amount of food at that of food kind of like one of the like something like that as well as like this sort pet of milk food as well eventually might have totally by now might have totally also turned into like a faceless dog like monster. So these two monsters and the making million investment user like has a major role to play, and we like by fighting alongside like the side of that group and the side of like Dustin and Will and like again like and even like these two like the dark like monster as well as like little pet out. So might have also turned into like a big team for the injury. So they have a major role to like play against like the shadow monster and like against like the first monster to be under like control of the shadow monster that or like playing roles in like saving that might Lucas understand our combined theory means that it means danger situation in like that settle the definitely the scenario that I'm looking at the okay so like nothing about the same right now but like work well right now that trying to like destroy that process that bias like I'm looking definitely right now for like scenario to be that sensitive situation is like night and definitely and with it being rain like that way since it's like the perfect condition for like anyone from like any one of like the bad version of like the events from like the bad one could be able to like easily uh, walk across like and work across like the round of mountain like basically luckily my dimension right now for like like we right now getting like the as like right now like trying to destroy yeah so bias like I'm will right now we'll be getting like that absolute biggest shock like will right now someone calling will from behind right now like another and with once like will be returning back like I'm like for to be either like the parallel version of like my or like I'm sorry for to be like the parallel version of Will himself. I'm being more closer about it like it being like the parallel version. This would be also one among like the army of like super payment of like maybe the cases that need to get better so that the pan version of Will as well might have eventually ended up running into that case in like the back in like the basket like the bad word might have been the case but you know, I can believe in like that way run up might have some of the experience and lack of advancement will in it might be have effects or also like about the design so that never bring that way like the fan just right now going up in front of like the real world fit and basically like so there is for like a bad version of it that's showing up in front of the real world fit and the current will be solely connected to that run arm of like liquid be controlling that bad version will would have given the orders to like bad version will to that will be bring more and more people to just like to run up like team of that so something so like into that way which name it like bad version will totally ending up that way, finding that the real world will end up in that definitely that the band boys will lack of lead, putting on and that's the fake acting and this the as a flag and like the loaded topic until being like the band boys will like exactly like the real world will end up in that. And I'm feeling more also like the bottle of like maybe like the band boys will not being like same age as like the real world will, but like maybe of like the band boys will be like the age was like will back when like in like the beginning, in like the very beginning, in like episode one of like Stranger Things, like how old will work back then, like maybe Van was with the that age, like about to that again. That way, like I'm putting maybe like the Van will might be also having like living like Runner's experience might be also having a telepathic powers as well. That way, like Van will that will be reading that the real world will that mind and understanding the evaluation will totally tell the real world will that actually play games with like uh, Dungeons and Dragons or that board game that they play like when that the evaluation will telling the real world will that will play that game all those games with him and for like the real world will be like come and that will be such an absolute trap and that will like come to like the evaluation will like lure like the real world will all the way towards like that form of where like base future base open base could be that way like I'm looking that the real world will as well once again being under the control and this time like in being under like the control of maybe like the pan version of which might be the case would be taking all the orders from like kind of might be the case that we might be and that way that the real world will like being given the order to also gather like just like from like the real world might be interesting uh, and bring them as back to like this board of like place to like, have them as well for like run of like the rebellions taking that like have them as well fall under this like control and that way for like runners to like eventually make it towards like 11 as well so that that like my like in that way like the player runner will get to move up to that like 11 should like 11 as like runs up and like start with eventually do the 11 as well towards like that go down eventually ending up 11 just like 11 something far and wide so that the desperation and eventually ending up into falling into that trap and they eventually run will be able to overcome 11 as well would get along the line like for now we'll be planning. So like that way, like I'm putting like the top seriously, like I'm putting like will get falling under like the control, like it's like the pan version of will be like even show up right now and like the control eventually control like the real world will and will that way tricking like only putting on that actually tricking and tricking like for my skills and that's in trying to like get them I'm just wondering it will be first it will be like Mike and Lucas that I'm just like the real world will like tricking and like like maybe even actually luring into like that go down and that way like the computer maybe like the real world might help us look at getting control that way. Like also like about that but like I'm doing eventually once like they would be then targeting Dustin and that might have maybe being like the remove that Dustin and Robin as well as Steve that would be eventually like changing everything is like and saving the it's like also like an individual scenario that I'm doing everything and also my third ambition is like Copper like totally like telling Joyce to like stay behind as like Copper is like totally like going ahead and trying to like find out what that sound the thing like the energy type of thing was like I'm bringing up like these sort of brave like Copper getting captured like the scenario and that point then Copper shouting out to like Joyce in a desperate manner to like around and save her like the scenario that happening. And at that point I was like Joyce totally because of that Joyce having her family and to be there for like will husband of Johnson like you definitely Joyce was very like definitely starting at that point to like probably listen to like Copper's words and Joyce also thinking along the lines of to like for escape for her to like escape for like the time being and possibly being let's say Copper maybe along the line or like I'm through by Copper only shouting out to like Joyce like I'm through Copper also telling Joyce that it's now like the monster and for like close to like on the door along the line like Copper is shouting out so maybe that at that point of time closing only listening to like Hopper and like really keep it from like the energy level place like the tsunami that of thing. And that way like in that the situation I'm slowly turning it will be only Hopper alone that will be getting captured and will be falling under the capture like production by aliens by just to be still managing to like escape from like the energy level of performance and would be then have having her own would be that has more the pressure and stuff falling on her to like basically to solve all this like situation and to like save copper and everything it's like doing the scenario that I'm looking at today. Okay, so like the thing of the ambition right now that's brought back and then say for that government right now entering into that the sports like home. Right now, the bring like the scenario to be that them both getting like the biggest shock right now. That's like not only like the that right is the empty and like the rat missing, but also the product will be that family missing in that house. It's like the scenario that I'm looking at. So definitely if I have definitely since like if I would be definitely answer like control with the data master definitely like since like so definitely this everything that Rat had seen and felt back then when Nancy and Jordan had came to like for folk in like the past and had seen like had like the process of Rat like that everything that Rat had seen and felt back then, definitely the shadow monster might have been able to like also see and feel as well. Especially when the because like this time like I'm definitely the shadow monster will be prioritizing stealth. The stealthy approach to things like progress towards its goal to like that absolute priority, top priority. Stealth will be the of such an extreme high priority for like the shadow monster this time. So like the shadow monster not having like 11 close the gate in like the pre-laboratory a year back, like in that way, once like Shadow Monster's goal was like destroyed a year back, like I'm doing like the Shadow Monster might have came to the conclusion that where the Shadow Monster went wrong was like in that it taking control of will, and that way, without using any stealth, like basically the Shadow Monster not prioritizing stealth might have been where like the Shadow Monster might have went wrong. Maybe along the line, the Shadow Monster might have came to the conclusion of so like this time, like and this like second attack of the Shadow Monster right now, I'm thinking like the Shadow Monster will be only being that as top priority to like stealth. So like I'm doing, especially definitely I'm looking through that control of that right, like the Shadow Monster might have figured about like Nancy and Jonathan, like basically the ones who were part of that the fight of like the Shadow Monster a year back, like them having like what we've seen like the rat and like the number of things and surrender. So like I'm trying to while prioritizing stealth to that with top priority, like the Shadow Monster might have decided to only get rid of all evidence that like Nancy and Jonathan have seen, and that way like I'm thinking like maybe the Shadow Monster might have maybe intended to have that whole person take place in that fact, even after like certain might have been what like Starbucks might have maybe intended, but like it might have been solely due to like Clancy and Johnson being the one and that had seen that particular path that might have been the reason for like the shadow much of the inspiration like after Nancy and Johnson had left that straight away like triggering that for explosion of the rat and everything might have been what might have happened is definitely membership. Then after that, like I'm doing like the shadow one might have been told the control of like a rat and like the shadow one might have got out a great number of like rats and like the control of like the shadow one to that house of like the skull and might have maybe eliminated like the skull and might have probably uh, a hidden body and well might be what the shadow might have done to like get rid of evidence might have been what like the shadow might have done. Exactly, memory everything. So like right now, like Nancy and Johnson, like right now, having entered into like the sports like home once again, like I'm doing right now, Nancy and Johnson finding like the house totally empty, like that right page as well empty and the spot that will totally missing in that house, like the scenario that I'm going. So that I'm sure maybe Johnson at that point, like Johnson maybe coming to like the conclusion that basically straight away assuming that like Elder Scrolls might have eliminated like that rat and might have right now gone off somewhere with the along the lines like that wasn't the case and might have like gone off somewhere with the along the lines something like Jonathan. But might be straight away assuming but like I'm sure Nancy was only feeling off and I'm sure like right before like Nancy and Jonathan would be about to leave the first time like Nancy was really finding out the crucial evidence and like that most likely the blood stains on like the floor in some specific area on like the floor like the scenario, which like that might have been an evidence, which even the present the shadow monster might also feel this feel like get rid of might have been the case if you know that way like and then probably shockingly like this is you're realizing or like feeling that like there's like a lot more going on than like the feeling like something to like the situations like a rational other thing. Would be along the lines of like a conclusion that like and it will become down depending on the and at that point, I was like Nancy straight away calling Hopper to report about like the missing of like spot. But like I'm talking by then like Hopper will be in once that reasons things is like abducted and possibly even in some kind of like a situation by like the spy things. While and then I'm talking like with like Nancy, you know, being to like get connected to like Hopper like I'm Nancy then calling like the news reporters and like totally telling them informing them about like this like whole missing of like missing spot and everything. It's like things and after that and something I want to react. Okay, so like definitely considering the micro presentation right now that basically so like the shadow monster definitely this time it would be like stealth that would be the highest of like priorities until it achieves those. So like I'm preparing definitely that with like Jane Johnson right now like seeing which is this the store under that was a state by the shadow monster definitely I'm preparing right now for like the store with like all that populations in like another thing like would be totally breaking like the middle of the race and storm like would be totally destroying like the nearby window and then from like storm like totally in like in like an inhuman manner but like such speed like I'm so like be like simply jumping out of that window and basically running off and escaping. That's the scenario that I'm fix. So like definitely for like the challenge right now. So like Nancy and Jonathan having seen like the sport in like the like state like I'm that the highest priority of the shadow method to like ensure that neither Nancy nor Jonathan is able to like capture this sport. That's the scenario that I'm so that way like I'm doing the like the fertilizer like or like escaping from her home with like the scenario that I'm doing and that way like the shadow or some totally so it's like control that is called like bring it up to like that stealthy location within like the town of pockets where like that stealthy underground upside down underground upside down would be and like it's called like being from there with control of the shadow and that for that fertilizer of like it's called like the that will be being spread on to like the mind and that they like the mind actively absorbing all that fertilizer and then like get stronger and like it's like phase of sort of like increasing. Eventually that's like the scenario that I'm looking for. Like I'm afraid. And at that point I was like Nancy and Jonathan would be with shock with that. And would be seriously thinking of like the Sharon once again back, this back and so on like move. And at that point, I'm looking for the thing that Nancy would be doing would be like straight away calling Hopper. But like I'm from that Hopper won't be like sitting up with that phone. So specifically because by then like instantly remember from that direction by it would be capturing Hopper. So like Hopper not being able to like answer with that phone at all. And like I'm then Nancy usually calling Owens is like the scenario. Maybe like Nancy have like the number on the like looking where so like Nancy usually calling Owens that. But like I'm doing even by then like nothing not getting the call not connecting to like on the laptop like on that well will be currently in that some kind of like situation in what might be like that kind of the level of things might be present under like the mall in like pocket might be the case. So like neither like nothing not being into like contact neither pop up not on this like the scenario that I'm looking over there. And at that point I was like Nancy and Jonathan like to be feeling like as if like it's all down to themselves to like to picking up things out and basically to spend of like the channel myself. But like I'm doing at that point, like and then to also be thinking of like basically for like 11 as one of possible. Definitely because like 11 and 11 like about definitely can do something that like as 15 and if the necessary that they would have to like stop the channel member. To once again fight against like channel sorry the 11 like Nancy and Johnson is also like about to develop. So like that way like them trying to like make it towards like trying to like contact uh, 11. And also the police and is also thinking of like getting in contact with like Steve as well. It's also like in scenario that I'm going to go to like channel to represent with like the group of like Steve, Robin as well as like Muslim right now only spying on what they feel have like the Russian spy is like I'm putting that during currently without much great delay I'm putting most likely while during the spying like I'm putting most likely maybe uh, all three of them getting captured, getting caught up by electoral by agents and getting captured and getting put into like an investment kind of situation by electoral by agents. By just like doing the scenario that I'm considering that way maybe so such a member like by the time like then being trying to like get in contact with like Steve that as well not being possible for like it's also like an scenario that I'm doing with brain. So that's like the preemption right now with that Steve suspect as well as the Robin noticing all this that one thing that like the suppression file is like loading all these boxes like those boxes might definitely contain like spring that might be batteries like that might be batteries like great number of like batteries that might be required to that only fuel that complex machine that would be affecting all the magnets in like might be the case simply through which like that opens like proper and everything might be the case of the computer. So like all these boxes that in order and taken into the Slack and home, like that home which like Nancy, which like Robin as well as Dustin and Steve have seen like basically as these boxes being taken into this room and like the door closing that won't be a room that might definitely be an elevator that would be going underground towards like this like stealthy kind of laboratory beneath the mall that would be process where like this machine would be so like all these batteries will be taken into this like into these like multiple boxes and to a great extent number of like batteries will be required to like power up and basically to those like batteries as well definitely will be required on top of like the power like to have like this like complex machine to like and everything is definitely necessary. Okay, so like we have very mentioned right now as for like 11 as well as mentioned right now, witnessing that we actually have been up the slack. Heather's parents, like at Heather's home, like they have to bring Heather's parents to do the believe, but like Heather's parents as well. Right now would be under like the control, remote control of that the superhuman individual of that individuals will be perfect army like run of the universe English, so like they will be all inaccurately remote control, not just believe, but like those parents of Heather as well. By now, I don't like the remote control and that even through the dark wedding theme that Heather like basically trying to attend that has been continually part of like the trap set by for like element two. That when your element two had the smoke and at that point to totally put on the slack to have that element of her guard through that this next page they getting through that beneath the slack beneath the having been up having been up like the pattern and all that. Where like it will be totally intended to have Maxine as well as that element from their guard or a mismatching to that proper data and will be tuned that way to locate target trap filament and this need to also maybe if that even if that kind of each and every one of them that really as well as like kind of parents like right now through like the remote control will be able to like use the about might be the case of new member and then you can use about might be the case of new member. So like them to like only try to like bring down and capture filament even if it's through like them threatening to like eliminate like that way to like stop 11 and this leads to chapter 11 and possibly take 11 to that board on will be definitely what like for another way right now planning and this is like even the scenario that I'm basically understanding. Okay, so like the demand preemption right now as for next video right now staring intensely at like 11 at like 11 as like meeting like federal home like and it would be like the shadow of the that will be so really that will be seeing what we see and like for that won't be the case it will be inequity will be run up that will be see what we need to selecting right now. So it's definitely much and the reason for like here right now is densely staring at like 11 at like 11 is being it's definitely one thing because like I'm with believe right now this like intense care like will recovery the past where like element has like closed like the gate and stop like the attempt of like the sound monster to take control of 11 like basically this preparing while this was happening like I'm from that from up from a distance from like the bad world helping myself change this witness this definitely my effect think of this all this happening the black so that solely with like 11 like superpower along like 11 being able to like was that entire case that we might have seen this traumatism and might have been extremely even more impressed, even more greatly impressed over like 11 of definitely doing and passing of house definitely mentoring and run up like with the even though the person will be only seen 11 as like that absolute speed to like totally bring down like the shadow of the definitely my good friend and this would be the reason for like that ultimate that ultimate individual that like run the no runner by now might have created was that army of like superhuman like that ultimate individual. So he needs to like lead all the army of like superhumans to that face off and defeat and eliminate like such a rumor. Would be definitely 11. So like this might be the reason for like failure right now staring intensely as like 11 is like leaving those notes definitely might be definitely might be correct. So it will be like not fully stare but like and it would be nice that the shadow monsters stare but like it would be naturally it might be Pranav stare. So like I think to prove one of like Pranav's like super payment army individual member like I'm just insurance might need this might be definitely the balance of India that Pran might be like remotely controlled Philly through such a manner as well as like Pranav would be also able to like sneak that bad version of Philly might be also able to like show Pranav everything like that bad version of Philly would just see through through the like remote control over like the real world might be the case definitely might be yeah. Okay, so like the minimum preemption right now, that's for like head of like mother right now, feeling like head of and basically collapsing. Like would be definitely due to like additives like added by head of forbidden to like the wine like head of mother gets like project and like as for like was like close that head of it's like right now covering head of like father's face with like a thing that would be definitely chloroform, definitely quite great. So totally like put them both into like an unconscious or like a like state and that way to like transport them to like that very same bonus and to that way to increase like a partner's like army could be definitely what like could be definitely according to the partner's plan that everything is happening right now in that house of like it's definitely one brain which is go definitely already that as of actually to be actually under like the remote control of like the individual army of that from the implementing might be the case that it might be. So definitely to increase and expand up that the army of that supplements of that to for like technically phase off and burn down that the shadow with that element with that eventually turning element even through force that to turn element to be that leader of that army and to that phase and bring down that the shadow would be element would be trying to that even